Every journey begins with a simple act of care. For Quest to Unite Africa, that journey started with something simple: a mother, a newborn, and a promise that no life would be forgotten. We did not begin with buildings, we began with people. We packed mother newborn kits with our own hands because real change starts where the need is greatest. Those kids traveled farther than we imagined, and they opened our eyes to a deeper truth. Aid saves lives, but infrastructure saves generations. So we grew. Together with donors, volunteers, and partners, we sent a medical container to Burkina Faso. Not just supplies, but hope. Not just boxes, but proof that when a community comes together, healing moves across borders. That moment changed us because we realized something powerful. We weren't just delivering help, we were building a future. Now the journey continues. The next chapter is bigger than a shipment, bigger than a campaign. We are raising funds to build a state-of-the-art hospital, a place where mothers can give birth safely, where families can find care close to home, and where communities can grow stronger for generations to come. This hospital is not just a structure, it's a promise. A promise that healthcare will no longer be temporary. A promise that dignity will have a permanent home. And just like every step before, we cannot do this alone. Every gift, every brick, every name placed on the founder path becomes part of a story that began with compassion and is growing into legacy. It helps us move from emergency aid to lasting healing, from containers to care that never leaves, from vision to reality. Join us, stand with us, help us build a hospital that will serve generations, moving healthcare into action. Visit Q2UA.org today.
Okay, here we go. Shalom, salama. Welcome to Q2UA Discussions Live. This is Q2A Discussions Live. And in this channel, on this platform over here at Q2A, we discuss some of the contemporary things that's going on in the continent of Africa and beyond within the African diaspora. As a lot of us may know that are here within the continental United States, there has been, excuse me, a massive effort to um, in impinge upon, prohibit, and even derail the African American experience, the rights, or what was thought to be rights. I have to put that caveat in there of what our ancestors, how they were brought on over, and simply how they were provided a narrative, not necessarily something truthful, but an idea of how everything, if you work for the system, if you live in the system, if you speak of the generations that come after, of the continuity and endeavors of a system, and this is the key word, continuity. And over the course of time, the messaging, it hasn't been an erosion based off of internal factors, because I can tell, and many of us can attest, that messaging still resides within our community loud and clear, but now the confusion of the message, because the messaging was supposed to bring about um a concept of a construct that you can participate and share in and thrive in the American dream, and that was simply not the case, nor has it been the case. The reality is that, as we have been able to come together, and make no mistake, we, again, I do put this on out there, we're a 501c3 organization here at Q2A. Q2A's mission, of course, to unite Africa, is critical infrastructure and economic development. And I would say over the last 3 years, the mission has not changed. It's actually developed more and more and more. And last week, I wanted to get on. I I usually get tired at this time of the week, and I get tired because usually I start off on not just not just on Sunday, but really Saturday nights. And that's going in and working out a few things. We are still working some things on out in terms of our IT domains and processes. As you and many have noticed, our website is down. And understandably, there are some things that are going on in the background, as we are bringing that back online. There are some things that I needed to work on. Red has been helping me to and advising me of how to get things taken care of. But I'm confident. I'm confident that it should be working here in the next couple of days, because and this is just to kind of give you some things without spoiling. And this is just how we do business. Look, it's Q2UA. It's Quest to Unite Africa, and what we try to do, we try to have most of our assets, especially in the digital space, over on the continent, and that helps us with our operations that we do here abroad, or in domestically and also internationally. So when people say, "Well, your website kind of lags a little bit," well, it's designed to, because it bounces. It goes to places in Africa, and then it bounces back here. And there is foresight to that, because part of the plan and the planning has always been, we would be at a position in the time and the space that we're at right now. Let's just face it. A lot of people are trying their best to understand and come up with a plan of how to um, remove themselves from a dire situation. And I say dire situation because it's now been admitted that now that we're nearing mid May to about early June, we're starting to see a lot of falter, of faultiness, as the uh, economic conditions, and they're deteriorating. So when people say that things are looking good, things are looking better, things will be better, and I have to say, hey, I'm glad that that there's optimism. Look, okay, I have to give people that type of support, benefit of the doubt. Hey, if that's what you're called to do, if you're called that you're gonna see this nation turn around, and okay, hallelujah, so be it. Now for here, what our mission has been in the space of the 501c3, our mission has been to reach on out, to develop, to support, to enhance, and to be a substantial factor in how we are able to represent ourselves within Africa, in the African environment and experience. So now we're doing that. And again, last week was a busy week because there were some things that I was dealing with out of the blue. That's how the Most High works. And that benefit, it has been, and it still is, and it is, and this is why I'm sluggish. I'm a little tired, because we're now at a critical phase. And shout out to Brother Yakoba yesterday when he was saying, look, in the lands of our oppression, it's hard that we have been conditioned to not trust. And I would say he's absolutely not 100%, about 1,000% correct. And the model to inhibit, to derail, to block, to have an obstacle of being able to trust one another has always been not just here, but also abroad. And when this mission had first started, I used to hear the ain't nobody gonna support this, and nobody's gonna support that, and nobody's thinking about Africa, and nobody, and do you know now in the comments that I get, and this isn't to throw shade at anybody, but now all of a sudden, um, now it's hey, brother Karras, can you find out how or what the mechanisms are? How can I move? How can and I tell people, and I have to tell people in the comments, or that not just in the comments, but the emails. I'm not here as a travel agent or a transition specialist. Now I can get them in touch with people that I trust that will be able to get them to where they need to be, where they want to be. But the only thing that I can do is do the work that the Most High has for us to do, especially in this organization, because again, now people are feeling the proverbial heat. And and excuse me, and honestly, and that's okay. It was always designed to be at this time. And the trust that we have developed over 3 years and change, we've now been around for over 3+ years. We've gone through the ups and the downs, the hurdles, the challenges, you name it. And so there are some things going on. You're on the right track when you have laws and registrations and other dictates and ordinances on the books that it's to go after. We're now going to be in a time of lawfare, unprecedented lawfare. And I had to laugh and I said, "Thank you, Father." Just as we're getting ready to launch, this lawfare is coming through. All the while we are in a time where these gas prices are not going down. I would argue these gas prices are just beginning to creep up and pop up. I don't know if you all had been aware, but the U.S. had struck Iran, and that is because it's presumed, it's purported that that was in retaliation for a failed Strait of Hormuz crossing for tankers. So again, this is a war. It's just that this is now a true economic war because you don't defeat a place like the United States with just military tit for tat military. No. But now the world is realizing that the blood, the oil, the dollars that had propped this place up, well, that strength was always its number one weakness. And I want to come on out here because there's an article that I want to show, and I'll give this. I'll get the article in the chat. So this comes from Turkey, Turkey. And I'm here on a 501c3 platform, so I have to be very measured with my words. Molly says April 25th attacks aim to decapitate leadership, vows no talks with armed groups. Foreign minister accuses internal external sponsors of backing coordinated attacks that killed defense chief, reaffirmed security partnership with Russia, alliance of Sahel states. So my Omar Sankari, 8 May 2026 is today. Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop said Thursday that the April 25th coordinated attacks were part of a broader effort to destabilize the country and overthrow its transitional leadership. And I would say more so it's to destabilize a region in that alliance. And says he accused unnamed foreign sponsors of supporting armed groups operating in the north. Speaking at a media briefing with diplomats accredited to Mali, Diop said the attack targeted strategic state figures and institutions, including the residence of transitional president Assimi Goita in Kati and the home of the defense minister, General Sadio Kamara, who was killed. What happened on April 25th aimed at nothing less than decapitating the country's leadership, said Diop. And Mali will not bow down. Now here's the gist of this, because now we have here that they're naming names. You haven't had that before. You have it now. Diop also accused Ukraine of publicly claimed logistical support for terrorism operating in the Sahel, while describing the conflict as a hybrid war conducted by proxy against Mali and the Alliance of Sahel states, which include Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. See, I have to, and I had to tell people, I wanted to caution people and tell people this. This is World War III. I don't want to sugarcoat that because when you understand how global warfare works, this is now, it's going outside, it's affecting regions. It's the same thing that you have over in the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. But let me tell you something that's also happening with this. And this is the crux of the matter. A silent giant is rising. A silent giant is rising. And that rise is not just the Sahel, not just West Africa, but it's Africa in general. And I want people to really be aware that Africa's rise was always portending on Western nations collapsing. And it is one of those things that you can see the collapse evident. And the evidence is something that you may or may not witness for yourself. It just depends. Now, let me explain to you what the reality is in this particular circumstance. As again, it's no secret, I was over in Burkina Faso back in September. We've been interacting and communicating with Burkina Faso for critical infrastructure and economic development programs, particularly for a hospital build and revitalization projects, as well as our ongoing projects in Ghana. This is what we do. It is to support being able to have the foundations for countries to do business, developing countries. Let's quote deemed developing. So this is well within our rights as a 501c3. And we are doing that to impact humanitarian effort. And in this time, we're now seeing that now these are skirmishes. I'm not going to say that these are, that it's terrorism. It's a skirmish. It's terrorism. Armed gangs, and they have obviously third party support that's backing them from the West. We already know that. We already know where the buck stops. And I'm not going to get into that because we are on a 501c3. But what we're able to do in terms of our relationship engagements and the strategies here for these relationships engagements continue to move along. The idea and the framework of showing and proving. Our engagement had started a while ago. And to get to where we're at right now, it's showing and it's proving. And it takes a little bit of time. It takes patience because again, we're dealing with a people that cannot trust one another. And yes, and I deal with that all the time. And yes, and I get I get a little worn down with it. But I say thank you, Father, because I know that for the curses to reverse, it actually takes faith. And the reality is that the faith, it's not faith in man, but you have to be able to have the spiritual understanding of how the Most High makes a way. Whether or not you choose to go in the door that the Most High has opened, that's what we all have to do. It's a choice. And now everybody is coming to this valley of decision. It's a choice because you're going to have to think long and hard when they start to come through with potentially energy blackouts on top of potentially another medical shutdown due to another crazy cookie on the scene. It's all culminating. It's culminating for a simple condition. You're going to have to make the choice. I can't make the choice for you. We're doing programs, we're planning programs, we're doing missions and planning missions to help support our community domestically and internationally. We're in a situation where you can see that the power, or what was thought to be some power, is now becoming and has now become a situation in which things are reverting back to their good old days. Even though it's not their good old days, because they're realizing that they don't have the same shine and luster that they once had because they were able to enjoy a lie. That's just how it goes. And they were riding that lie out for all of its worth. And yes, the gig is up. But at this time, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are truly few. And over this last week, it has truly been about planning, planning, and planning. Because here's the thing, we see what's happening on the horizon. However, the Most High doesn't just let us go unless the planning is there. He's a good father. He gives us that opportunity. Part of the planning right now is we need to have our people that are able to do accounting, that's able to do logistics, that's able to do administrative work. Look, could that be done through AI? It probably could, but AI isn't really the mustard there over on the continent. They want relationship. And that's not they, we. We need relationship. Because we look at things, we see things, we understand things, and we get a more critical eye than what that machine will ever provide to anyone. And this is where we need the help from the community. It wasn't that we were never going to get to this. It was when we got to this, what does our readiness look like? And that's something that the team over at Q2UA, that's what we look at every single day. That's what we converse, that's what we have conversations about when we're able to move and to go. And how does that look? So I am excited about what and how things will open up. I am engaged in quite a lot of other activities because we're doing other activities, excuse me, within the continent. And all I'm here to do is to support our brothers and sisters as they are looking to do. I'm going to tell you this. We are very, very resourceful as a people. And we have great ideas. We have witty ideas and inventions. And that's what makes us attractive to the continent. That's why I say, look, we always have to be mindful of what we say and what we do. Because the reality is this, they see us. They're looking at us. They're watching us. We're not just in a bubble. I know we may think that that's the case. It is not the case. And the reason that we think that that's the case is simply because they have been the ones, you know who I'm talking about, that have said, nobody's thinking about you, nobody's looking at you, nobody's paying attention to you. Because why? Because we can do whatever we want to do. That's what they said. That's what they have said. And they literally have stated that verbatim. Until a fateful moment on March 26, 2026, where their illusion was shattered with Ghana going to the UN and having a proclamation voted on that the majority of the world agreed upon. That shattered their image. That shattered all of the lies and the propaganda. And do you know what that means? There's now a silent giant in the continent, on the continent, that's beginning to stand up. And as it stands up more and more and more, well, there's going to be more and more opportunities. The question I always have for people is, are they ready? Are they ready? The only thing I could do is tell you what it is that we have the opportunities to do, but are you ready? So that's where things lie today in this state. And I do have to say that day by day, week by week, month by month, the Most High has been able to provide and do things way beyond any of our understanding, which is awesome because I I truly have the treat to see how he works and how he moves. So, like I said, they're always watching us. Some for some for wicked, some for righteous. But again, they know as they also are experiencing this global oil shock that the word remains true even to this day. So when people come up here saying crazy foolishness, I just tell them, go check the gas prices because that really does look. This thing is it's real, And I had a discussion the other day because I teach in an area that's considered a low income area for the demographics of where I'm at, and I bring stuff to school because I work on some things during my lunchtime, and when I think about all of the rising in fuel costs, because yes, it may be nominal. Now, understand it went up. It didn't go up 30 cents this week. It actually went up around 80 to a 80 to 80 cents to a dollar. It was pretty astronomical considering that you haven't seen anything like that in a couple of decades. Because I know people will look at, well, that's just the gas, you can fill up your tanks, that's fine. And a lot of people actually have to also look at this. Yeah, that's gas now, but that has a significant economic impact because when you understand that these prices will be then affecting food prices, energy prices, right? There's a whole plethora of economic impact that comes about that. Look, those simple inputs affects prices. Hey, we had to do they used to say we need to do a fuel surcharge. They're just saying forget that. We just have to raise this thing on out. And now you also have the inputs because okay, you can get gas. I get that. Well, it's this, it's that, it's gas. Well, the problem is you didn't have a kinetic war. You didn't have a shooting war. You didn't have battle carrier strike groups. Battle carrier strike groups. You didn't have a Strait of Hormuz that was closed. So it wasn't as a global shock as it has been. This used to be regional. No, it's global now, and it's affecting and touching everything and everybody. They're just not going to report on it. They used to. They were reporting on Singapore and Sri Lanka. It was also hitting Malaysia. It was also hitting Indonesia. They just don't want to tell you how bad things are, and then now they're springing up another health pandemic concern. So this is where we're looking at right now. And I'm telling you, it's also that also affects quality, because then what that does is that, because this is not a sustained rate, everything, okay, you could have your gas prices. That's cool. But when people don't realize that your oil that comes over from the Middle East that's refined here is no longer able to come through, that's a loss that they're not going to tell you. Because why? Because they need to have people subdued. Thinking about the NBA playoffs, thinking about the World Cup, thinking about every other bread and circus that they can get, while these prices are going to continue to rise, especially here in May. So I'm just saying, because I have to go and teach. And I don't even know. This is a crazy thing. I don't even know how I'm going to even do the job of teaching, because yesterday one of the main platforms, and it's around here, it's nationwide. One of the main platforms had been hacked, and I had to tell my students, and they weren't really, they couldn't get it. They're 13, 14-year olds. It doesn't register with them. And so I just had to tell them, turn off the laptops, power down everything, don't even access it on your phones. And the funny thing is, literally a few moments later, they made the announcement to power off at least the laptops. But I gave them the whole what you would do as an actual cybersecurity professional. Because then the students were like, "Well, can we access it on our phones and our tablets?" And I said, "No." I said, "Don't." I said, "Do not do that." Later on, it was literally at 5:54 in the afternoon, about an hour after people were getting home. Then the email came from the school district that I work in, and they basically said the exact same thing verbatim that I just stated. And the thing that frightened me was just how caught off guard we are, because we are designed to we're so I hope we know this. And what is happening right now, we're designed to not survive. You don't have any type of survival mechanisms or training or things of that nature, not even in school. They're teaching them and these kids to be an expendable item. And the reality is that there is zero self-preservation skills. That should be the most shocking. Hey, you know that back a couple of years ago, literally in Lebanon, you had the pager attacks. And so I try to utilize that as a teaching moment because, again, that's not a teacher thing. That's not a parent thing. That's a society thing. What happens when an EMP detonates? What's the procedure for that one? Man, it's nothing. What happens if they shut down electricity? What happens, and I'm giving all these thoughts, these hypotheticals to the kids just to have them think about stuff like, look, it's not to get you scared, it's to get you prepared so you can think. We have you thinking about basic education. And in a time of war, you're not thinking about anything else besides basic education. That doesn't happen in Sweden. That doesn't happen in Norway. That doesn't happen in Finland. They're teaching them how to shoot a weapon. They're doing things responsibly. They're showing them how to actually hunt. They're showing them skills. They're doing responsible things to help the population sustain itself. That's not the case here. I'm just giving you my thoughts. You can take it, say whatever. It is what it is. But there's a lot of work that we have to do with our health and with our education. So we are able to survive these next couple of days, weeks, months, years. I don't know how the Most High is going to do the work. But all I know is, as a people, as a community, as a group, we're going to have to start learning how to trust one another again. And that's why I said, listen, don't trust me. Pray about it. See, you haven't been out to that bush, man. They be hunting. Why are they going to show you that they're going to be hunting? They're out in that bush hunting. Yeah, and McJagger, you're now seeing it. You're now seeing what the media is showing you, what they want to see. All right, family, that's all I got for this week. I got to get going. I got to get off here. I got to get things moving. I got some things to do. Please keep me up in your prayers, family, because we are on the move here at Q2UA. So with that said, family, till next week, you all be blessed. Just throwing that caveat on out there. I may be on, more than likely, it's probably sometime this weekend, because it looks like things are getting ready to flare up in the Middle East. You can catch that on Covenant Awakenings. So I'm anticipating that, because yesterday was really just a warm up, and it looks like it's going to be a very unceremonious trip for Trump going over to China, and we'll cover all that because it looks as though, look, like we said, 75 days. We're now getting to that window, 75 days to 90-day window, and all of the airlifts, everything else was prepared for this time. They're now doing their workups, they're now doing their drills, and this is more than likely we're going to see these phase lines um, for these operations. So, with that said, I do need to get up on out of here. Thank you, family, for your prayers and your supports to Q2UA. And with that said, family, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom. Oh, wrong platform, but shalom and salama, family. Be blessed and be encouraged, as the mission is a mission that will help not just this generation, but generations to come. Shalom.